Pope Francis calls on South Sudanese leaders to embrace peace. The National Pre-Transitional Committee calls on the internal community to support the peace process before the end of the pre-transitional period. And South Sudan and Germany discuss the humanitarian situation in the country. Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to SSBC Live from Juba. I'm Elizabeth Akoda-Malab, taking you through the news. Now, a two-day prayer retreat in the Vatican ended with Pope Francis calling on South Sudanese leaders to embrace peace as the basis of human rights. Pope Francis said the first word that Jesus uttered to his disciple was peace. During the retreat, Pope Francis kissed the feet of the South Sudanese leaders. Pope Johnson Matura Kech reports from the Vatican.
The two-day retreat prayers in the Mosque San Marce, the Vatican guest house, end with Pope Francis calling on the country leaders and members of Council of Churches that the peace was the first word Jesus Christ said to his disciple after the resurrection. Peace is the fundamental condition of ensuring the rights of the individual and the integral development of entire people. The Vatican retreat was designed to build a mutual understanding, reconciliation, and trust among South Sudanese leaders to shoulder responsibility to work for the future of peace and prosperity of the nation. Pope Francis said, "Dear brothers and sisters, peace is possible," making an ironical move by kneeling down and kissing the feet of South Sudanese leaders. Vatican prayers focus on the country peace process and the visit of Pope Francis to Juba. Peace is the first gift that the Lord brought us and the first commitment that the leaders of the country must pursue.
The today night's prayers will bring positive change to people of South Sudan and to the leaders. Leaders of South Sudan today join the Pope in the prayers that will bring the people of South Sudan to have the confidence, join together their hand and unite for peace to consolidate among the people of South Sudan. Reporting for South Sudan Broadcasting Corporation in Rome, Vatican, Pope Johnson Matura Kech.
Now, the Ministerial Committee for Economic Cluster was briefed by the Minister of Petroleum on oil production data in a meeting shared by the Minister of Cabinet Affairs, Dr. Martin Elia Lomoro, in Juba on Thursday. The meeting also listened to the National Revenue Authority on details of tax collection in the country. The reports would help the Council of Ministers in decision-making process pertaining to allocation of funds for developing as well as for maintaining peace and stability. Dr. Martin Elia Lomoro said the committee requested the concerned ministries to provide realistic data based on correct information to avoid mistakes and financial gaps in the budget.
This morning, the economic cluster, based on the directives of the Council of Ministers in its meeting number 6, 2019, which was held on the 29th of March, directed that the economic cluster further scrutinize the resource envelope in order to determine the elements of the resource envelope that will allow for the budget of 2019-2020 to be realistic and operational. So the cluster discussed this morning and requested information from the Minister of Petroleum, who gave us the production data, updated production data on exactly how many barrels we're producing in South Sudan in order to make the budget realistic. We should discuss some of the commitments that the government has to undertake in order for us to see the net oil revenue that is available for the resource envelope. We also looked at the latest data on collection of other revenues under the National Revenue Authority, and we now have decided that this will now be properly factored into the budget.
The members of the National Pre-Transitional Committee, headed by the Deputy Chairperson, Gabriel Changson Chang, met with the African Union Commissioner for Peace and Security, Ambassador Ismail Chagui, in the Ethiopian capital Addis Ababa on Wednesday. The delegation briefed the Commission on the implementation of the peace agreement and on the challenges hindering the process. The committee called on the African Union, IGAD, and international community to support the implementation of the pre-transitional activities before the end of the pre-transitional period. Our colleague Oliver has more on the story.
The National Pre-Transitional Committee has called upon the African Union, IGAD, and international community to support the activities of the various mechanisms to the revitalized peace agreement. The members of the National Pre-Transitional Committee, headed by the Deputy Chairperson, Gabriel Changson Chang, on Wednesday met with the Commissioner for Peace and Security, Ambassador Ismail Chagui, at the African Union headquarters in Addis Ababa. The meeting reviewed the status in the implementation of the peace deal and the challenges hindering various mechanism in translating the agreement on the ground. The Deputy Chairperson of the National Pre-Transitional Committee, Gabriel Changson, said they have briefed the Commission on the peace implementation and challenges facing its process.
The delegation briefed him about the implementation process for the agreement, the challenges, and the way forward. For us, in NPTC, we express the challenges that are facing the agreement, the implementation, and notably the funding of the activities of the pre-transitional period. And we, in the NPTC, are trying our level best to solicit support from the government, which has been coming in, and as we speak, we are moving because the government has put in some money, and we are appealing to the other partners to this peace process to support the implementation of the peace process. As we are always emphasizing the issue of solving African problems with African solutions, then we discuss with His Excellency how the AU, the IGAD, and the international community can come in to support this peace process.
The Commissioner for Peace and Security, Ismail Chagui, urged the parties to stick on the agreement as it is the solution to bring lasting and durable peace. Ambassador Ismail further said he will work hard together with the African Union to ensure that the agreement is implemented.
We had a very important opportunity to discuss with our brothers today on where we are in the implementing of the revitalized peace agreement in South Sudan. We have addressed all issues at hand, candidly, responsibly, because we are convinced that time has come for not only for all South Sudanese, but also all the friends of South Sudan to join hands in making sure that this agreement now is implemented and fully agreement. But indeed, we are now encouraged by the additional contribution of the government to the process. And we are saying that additional gesture should be done by the government, but meanwhile, we are starting mobilizing the international community and African member states and we have already 3 member states who offer to help on some issues of security in terms of implementing the agreement. So we are hopeful that others will come in, and at the end, that before the 12th of May, things will be better on all the levels in terms of implementing the agreement.
According to the deal, the revitalized transitional government of national unity will be formed on the 2nd week of May this year. However, an evaluation of the pre-transitional activities will be conducted by the parties to the agreement in order to come up with the final recommendation. Francis Oliver, SSBC, Addis Ababa, Ethiopia.
The Minister of Finance and Planning, Salvatore Garang-Mabiudit, and the Fiscal Affairs Department discussed strengthening the country's economic situation. The meeting held at the International Monetary Fund headquarters in Washington, D.C., also looked at supporting the funding developmental projects in South Sudan. The Fiscal Affairs Department promised to visit Juba soon to assess areas of concern in the economy.
To give an opinion how the country should be governed, and we hope that we will continue to abide by those things. So the peace, which is the umbrella for every contribution, is what we put first, so that it is sustainable. Once it is sustainable, then new aspects will come, and we'll be working in a conducive atmosphere that will not hinder you to be worried that there's shooting where there's shooting where. So these are the things that we need, and we have been talking to other donors, at least to organize a donor conference in order to fund this peace, because peace is very expensive, more than war. Every area must be given a chance to have all the facilities the government could give, and also allowing the NGOs and other organizations to be moving around without being hindered by roadblocks or any other things that will impede their contribution to the areas, especially the rural areas. So we have been expecting the technical team to be in Juba, discussing our technocrats and how we could go forward and what are the areas for their contributions. The governor will also be talking about the monetary policy, because the fiscal policy of our party finance, and they in the bank, in order to ensure the fund that we are doing what should have been done before the war, in order to upgrade our peoples from poverty and to a sustainable level. So such are the things that we need from you to, some we have discussed them, some of the officials who are there in Juba discussing with them, and that's how Article 4 was finalized. We still need in other areas, so the Minister of Finance and the bank, to put in some of the technical areas where we will have benefit of your expertise. So these are some of the areas I think have done through.
And the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs and Disaster Management, Hussein Marnyot, met with the Director of Humanitarian Assistance of the Federal Foreign Office in Germany. In a statement to SSBC after the meeting, Hussein Marnyot said the meeting focused on the humanitarian situation in South Sudan after the signing of the revitalized peace agreement. Hussein said he also briefed his guest on areas of need in the country. The Director for Humanitarian Assistance, Dr. Thomas Zeneisen, said he came to Juba to assist the country's humanitarian needs.
Actually, Germany is one of the big donors that have been helping South Sudan and the operation of humanitarian in South Sudan here. So we appreciate his coming. He came from Germany to come and see the situation of humanitarian, especially after the signing of the peace agreement that is under implementation now. We briefed him about the humanitarian situation in the country, and the good thing also, he went to the field and he visited that side of Lair, and he has seen for himself.
Very fruitful in helping to understand the situation. As the Minister said, I'm the Director of Humanitarian Assistance in Germany, and South Sudan has been for a long time, for good reasons, one of our key partners for humanitarian assistance, because I was able to see on the ground that this aid is required, and the way it is conducted by humanitarian assistance agencies and the government, it is also in good hands. And I can only reassure you that we understand the needs, the complexity of the situation, and we will be a good and a faithful partner for your country.
This is SSBC News. Let's go for a break. We shall be right back. Pope Francis calls on South Sudanese leaders to embrace peace. The National Pre-Transitional Committee calls on the internal community to support the peace process before the end of the pre-transitional period. And South Sudan and Germany discuss the humanitarian situation in the country. You're welcome back to our news. Now, the Minister of Gender, Child and Social Welfare, Awudeng Achil, launched a research report on violence against women and girls in Juba on Thursday. In a statement to SSBC, Minister Awudeng described protection of women and girls as a collective responsibility of society. She called on the public to respect the rights of women and girls and denounce violence against women and girls. Speaking during the occasion, the head of the UK Aid, Bex Beckingham, said they would work with the government to combat violence against women and girls and promote equal opportunities for all.
And I think listening to key findings will also be listening to key recommendations. And the key recommendations, I don't think can be only handled by the government, but I think it's a collective responsibility. It is a collective responsibility because we also have our community structures that see day-to-day activities in their communities. What is going to be their roles at that level? What is going to be a role of the government? What is going to be a role of civil society? What is going to be the role of academia, especially the Juba University? Because it is very important that such new things that are coming to our culture need to be addressed properly. Because if they don't exist, then we'll have to go back to what we used to know. In terms of respect, in terms of security, in terms of protection of our people. We need to help each other to be able to come out from these.
Lost due to violence experienced by women in this study comes to approximately 8.5 million lost days of work in the past year. Let me just say that again. 8.5 million days of lost work in the past year due to violence against women and girls. So even if you're not thinking about the devastating effect on that woman or girl themselves, think about the devastating effect on the economy, the productivity, the family, the workplace, the school. It also shows that violence both within and outside the home affects the bottom line of business. Among the 99 businesses surveyed through this study, the total loss of person days due to violence against women is equivalent to the loss.
We now go to South Africa, where global experts are calling on South Sudanese leaders to support efforts to build effective, inclusive and accountable public institutions capable of providing rule of law, support economic growth and reduce poverty through provision of basic services and realize sustainable development. This came at the ongoing 5-day retreat to mobilize internal and international support to the national dialogue and the revitalized peace agreement. SSBC's Alianda Loto reports from Pretoria.
As South Sudan pulls out of conflict and heads towards new political dispensation, regional and international experts are calling on the country leaders to commit to strong, sustainable, balanced, inclusive and job-rich growth and to promote policies and scale up capacity development that will help the country unlock its growth potential and enhance resilience. They advise that the government prioritize the creation of well-performing public institutions and good governance for development and poverty reduction in the country. An expert on governance exhorts officials to address the issues of human rights and to roll out truth and reconciliation programs across the country to stem out hatred and bitterness that was brought by the war. This, he says, would help build a peaceful and cohesive country in South Sudan.
This we did through institutionalization. We created institutions and we popularized the transition through the media. And Nelson Mandela was, of course, very good at this, but we had a press that could carry the message, and we created institutions that were incrementally fairer and more inclusive as we went on. So this is the two things.
You have to ask yourself, where are you in terms of this? You have to ask yourself, where is South Sudan right now in terms of this? You can't expect investments to come to Juba from the outside as long as the story of South Sudan is war, people at war with itself. That has to stop. And Chairman, what you are doing here is about talking how to end that war.
A constitutional expert says it is crucial for South Sudan to establish inclusive political processes that actively engage citizens and other stakeholders to build trust in government and help create more responsive and equitable policies and public services that are better suited to diverse needs of the people. He says inclusive institutions level the playing field and provide all citizens with opportunities to participate in and shape public policy. The co-chair of the National Dialogue Steering Committee, Angelo Beda, says the acceptance by the opposition groups to participate in the national dialogue process clearly shows that South Sudan is slowly getting closer to creating inclusive institutions that address major concerns of the people.
Institution or every arrangement we make, the one following becomes more inclusive than the other. The third one will become more inclusive than the second one, and so on and so on. That's the thing. We have started in South Sudan, the signing of the agreement, and then the starting of national dialogue. We are becoming more inclusive now in this ad hoc committee, and we are talking of the two things. We shall soon address it. And as things happen like this, there's a lot of pessimism and there's a lot small aspect of optimism. But people go ahead careless.
And the Deputy Rapporteur of the National Dialogue, Dr. Francis Madingdeng, on his part, says the once hot political temperatures in the country have profoundly subsided and that there is now a high level of optimism among the citizens that things may improve for the better.
I think there's a degree of reason to be optimistic. Just before coming here, we had a meeting of GEMAC, stakeholders, civil society, academia, what they call eminent persons and all that. A smaller group. And we're given a chart, which I shared with the chairman, about 3 categories: done, not done, and partially done. And the category of done was much, much larger. The category of not done were much less. And partially done is also less. And then the chairman asked the question, as we go ahead now, should there be a government of national unity formed, or should we wait until the hard parts are done, like particularly the security aspect? And views were divided. There were those who thought the government should be formed, and those who were against forming the government. I was with those who wanted the formation of the government. And I said, if the government is not formed, it will send a signal that the agreement has failed. Yes. The government should be formed and then challenged to continue to implement what is not implemented. So he asked how many people are for, we voted. It was not a serious vote, it was part of the conversation. And the majority wanted the government to be formed.
22 leaders representing various political parties are gathering in South Africa with the aim of consolidating an inclusive dialogue, advancing the complementarity of the revitalized peace agreement and the national dialogue process, articulating a vision for a future South Sudan, and developing a strategy to mobilize internal and international support. Alejandro Lotok, SSBC News, Pretoria, South Africa.
Moving on, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation has called on the international community to give peace a chance. The ministry's Under-Secretary Bak Valentino Wall made the call on Thursday following a meeting with the visiting Red Cross Vice President Gilles Carbonnier. Bak told the delegation that the government is committed to the peace agreement. He called on the Red Cross to help the government in resettling refugees and displaced persons who will need medicine, shelter and basic services like food.
Advocating for peace should be a responsibility of everybody, including those of you in ICRC. You should continue to encourage us to maintain peace and not to go back to war. And if you come across those who are still advocating for war or thinking that this peace is not good, is not going to work, tell them, give it a chance. That much you can do. Don't frustrate it, give it a chance. There are people who are still advocating for additional sanctions, arm embargoes, sanctions on individuals. I want to tell you honestly speaking, I have never come across countries where sanctions have succeeded.
And finally, the National Ministry of Health conducted a workshop on the dissemination of the 2017 antenatal care survey results. Speaking to SSBC, the Director of HIV Department at the Ministry of Health, Dr. Victoria Ashut, said the survey results would assist partners in planning. Dr. Victoria said the survey revealed surveillance of HIV, syphilis and hepatitis B.
We have just concluded the dissemination of the antenatal care sentinel surveillance results for 2017, and sentinel survey is a survey done on selected facilities where pregnant women are counseled and tested, and the main indicators in this survey are HIV prevalence, syphilis prevalence and hepatitis B prevalence, and it's the first time we are including hepatitis B prevalence in this survey. We have conducted several such surveys in 2007, 2009, 2010, 2012, and since then this is the first one we are conducting in 2017.
We've come to the end of our news bulletin. Thank you so much for viewing. I'm Elizabeth Akulda Malath, wishing you a good afternoon. Stay tuned for more programs.
تجاه البلاد تجاه المجتمع يبدأ يساهم بقدر ما يستطيع. ذلك بهذه الطريقة هذه العملية نستطيع أن يكون بين حياتنا التوازن. ليس أن الإنسان يجعل حياته جمع الأموال والسحر من أجل الأموال، لكن من تأكيد البعض يجمع الأموال ويقول أنا أرسل إلى بلدي أو أرسل إلى منطقة هذا أن يكون في هذا المكان الذي تعيش فيه. لذلك نحن كمسلمين في هذا البلاد لا بد يكون لدينا دور. نحن كمواطنين في هذه البلاد لا بد يكون لدينا دور، لأننا نحن الآن يعني رأينا أن من حولنا بادروا وقدموا، لكن ما دور المسلمين تجاه ما يدور حولنا. لا بد المسلم كذلك يسمى قال ليس منا من لم يهتم بأمر المسلمين، ليس منا من لم يهتم بأمر المسلمين. المسلم ليس معزول عن الدين، لا بد يعيش ما حوله ولا بد يتفاعل بما حوله. الآن نحن في وضع أو في ظل أن الوضع في البلد يحتاج إلى مبادرة، يحتاج إلى مساعدة في تفعيل السلام الاجتماعي والاقتصاد. كل هذه المعاني يحتاج الدولة أن تساعد فيه. ما دورنا كمسلمين؟ ما دورنا كاتجار؟ ما دورنا كرجال أعمال؟ ما دورنا كمواطنين؟ هذا أسئلة مهمة جدا للإنسان المسلم، لأن بذلك يمكن أن الإنسان يفيد المجتمع. وإن شاء الله إذا مات الإنسان وترك هذه المسؤوليات الله سبحانه وتعالى يأتيه يوم القيامة بهذه الأعمال الصالحة التي تركها. لأن الإنسان كما قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم حديث أنه لا إذا مات ابن آدم انقطع عمله إلا من ثلاث. يعني إذا مات ويموت الإنسان انقطع عمله إلا من ثلاث: صدقة جارية، أو علم ينتفع به، أو ولد صالح يدعو، أو علم ينتفع به درس كتاب أسلم مدرسة، أو ولد صالح يدعو له، أو ربى ولد ابنه على أعمال الصالح. لذلك نحب الأعضاء علينا أن نفهم مثل هذه الآيات والأحاديث في هذا الموضوع حتى نكون إيجابيين في المجتمع ونقدم الخير، لأن الخير مطلوب في كل مكان وفي كل أوقات. لذلك أدعو في هذا الموضوع كل من يدخل في هذا البلاد أن يبادروا بالأعمال الصالحة، وأن يبادروا كذلك في المساهمة في الأعمال التي تؤسس على السلم الاجتماعي والنمو والازدهار في هذه البلاد، لأن النمو وتقدم هذا البلاد يوم الفائدة والنفع لنا جميعا. لذلك هذه من الأشياء التي لا بد للمسلم والإنسان أن يهتم بها. نسأل الله سبحانه وتعالى أن يتقبل منا ومنكم. اللهم تقبل منا ومنكم يا رب العالمين. اللهم اجعل المسلمين الإخوان وكيف أنت خير من زكاها أنت وليهم الله رب العالمين. اللهم اغفر لنا ذنوبنا وإسرافنا في أمرنا يا رب العالمين. اللهم اجعل هذا البلد آمنا مطمئنا يا رب العالمين. اللهم اجعل هذا البلد آمنا مطمئنا يا رب العالمين. اللهم ارزقنا رخاء وسخاء يا رب العالمين. اللهم أمنا في أوطاننا يا رب العالمين. اللهم استرق التقى والغنى والعفاف يا رب العالمين. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام
بدروا علينا من سنيات الوداع.
واستجارت يا حبيبي عندك الظبي النفور. طلع البدر
علينا من سنيات الوداع وجب الشكور علينا غدا.
ke bi ana ko le ke pet na bi ana pan run kana ki wo ban ko ye dia wo ga dia ka ba a ku ba yi junu kan to won ta kir ma ya di ba ni cho kir ma ya di da ka pin le na ban mai bai ka yana chi kir ma ya di de le yen na ye yen ke yan ku ke ya mai bai ku bu mit ki bi ko to ka chin yan menam ja chin met kana de tini salam ko tin ka salam bala ko ba gam na kai bi ko tana ko ya salam ba ko ba gam ne biar dun ne biar de ko ti ka ko ne biar de diar ne biar na wati ji dong tuk tuk ki dong a ci kir ma yadi a ken salam kenen gam ka we pada un ci wo ban un ci wotin ci wotin ma le ko ki gaaw o ci kon beget je nan dun lam tane mi da kay kunu ci ko kon bera modya ci ma ci wo we modya ene ci wo gaaw ko riya ya dan o bo ko koy len limri ya ko ko o bari anda ci li jada da riya bera limi jada riya be gaaw ma kal tan ene ki ci wo gaaw ka e ci da we ko ki wo gra tane we ko ce ka yugo la ran ngi pa ni ci la ko ko tane e ko yindi tawtin we ngi ke ga pet fa yana kana ci wo ka gaaw na cha ko na ci wo gaaw to we fal ko wa waida wa ci wo gaaw wa ci wo gaaw fal ko wo yana kana bi wo gan kana salama ne bi wo kudu pan kana salama ci gam ko fa nge ke ngi ko na ci wo ga ci wo gan gam la na ban ci wo ban wan malakala ci wo go jog malakal wo malakal ban yu o ki ka lora pia ti lur ci wo lora ci wo lora o ki ba ban lo godwan o ki ka ba la lora ya e yan ci yana ya to tin ka wo we fi net salama ci wo lor ni before kin wo ban salama ci wo lor ni ko yana de tan ta wo na wo diar ade diar atin no lor ken ame ki ci ke ga dapti mkin taw ki gan ko ci ga gatin wo ke jeji ko de ro ko ga dang ci kadwan ci bay kat ko ci lo gan ko kana taw Kenya kana taw no mi da taw ki Kenya mi ko taw ki no e biya do wor ga ka wo tok tok tawtina tem ko no nyali bi do bi ben bi ngak bi rir nam law de bi de wor ga bi koy galatin bi mi ka la wor ga ci mar rir ke won ti go wo na ci ben woni an ci fi yan yan ben lo ni tin kan ke ti ke ga bi la wor ga ne le bi dor bay na ci na le nam riel na de kana koy tam yole bay tam yol miol kana jale jubatu ta waktin akumai ci to ko we koy to pin e jale ta waktin ku bi ban yu pin bi ban du mona kon yen pin du ku bi wan won to pin won ci ka taw bi ko jo kay jo riop e we wa na ka jo ma riop ko we cin ku dum ngeke fa yen nyali ade nam do rene loy ci kir ma yadi ci ne pio ga rune ci loli ala be ci te gam ko man jaman ka jana tin nona jam ka tay wur ken ga bar ga sala cha to nona ka bar ga ka cha to wuto be hono to ko jam a ci jam ton ka waja a ci jam ton buñ a jam ton di de ton man ko ne chene do la yara na be inda jam ton na man di de ton jeng bi la le ka ken do da kai ko angai ka ton jeng jamana ada rana apa tu ngejim ke bija nak ada apa tu ngejim siap kan itu berar itu tu ngejim lalu wo kau cuma taruh deh aje pun cuma lah pan baru nanda jam tu bedi na kita tu bangun je dengan dah jago wo tu oh ini bayar bay cek salam aja buat emiti kan kita dalam soalnya aku ni tidak ada jadi kau pan kan bukan itu ya na kita di bana sih ya na kita biwa kan kewen dia kewen siapa kewen rodit ke pan kujalayan mahafiz de pan mai pan kan mahafiz na dai bana ban yo ke karar e pan ruile ja yo karar ruile fi ki we tok a ce la rer madina ce jal bila rer paloj to wonde karaba akan kon yo la rer marakal to won me da de karaba yo karar ka de fi utuna pan kana pan woni jara ko dana ko won ter ata wen wa mansur e pi ay na ko ga ay pi yor ko ga wa ken ban jara rer din ka we ko yen mahafiz min ko le lu ki wo no o ko kai ku o ko mi da kai ku bi wo gan fis tapi ada pio je ada akin kidi ba ba ga sai ngai fita fira kada wannan yan salama ta wabiya ko kai ra da ran dai sabon nan aka salama ja ta wabiya ko salamun kan poti akira ande mushkila ana pa don na ko bi ko na la ran chala sai wani gabana da duka shoda ya ci lo da yen na da yin bin kana na kira ne jiman wai ki mu da kake la lo le chaka gai wala le lu le lui wala le ngul ko lo ka ta han ni ci ja yen mu te ni ja bin kana
نحن كشباب نحن لدينا إيمان بالسلام لأنه لولا وجود السلام ما يكون في حياة إنسان فكشباب السلام بدي حاجات كثير فنحن كشباب بنرحب بكم في مقاطعة الوفد جاي من جوا لدينا السلام وإن نرغب في السلام وكل يوم ننادي بالسلام فنصلي من أجل السلام لا بريج السلام
yeah để đồng tạm quyền lúc rồi có được kèm giáo đâu có được tôi nó phải cái gì à ở đây cái chơi gì rồi ya thì barang này nó phi nào còn để phán để nó lừa à anh chỉ làm điều này cái nào tên giáo bảo là làm gì ya cái gì dia tuh đây để tiếng để năm cái này tiga jago mah tiga kit adir aku macin adir kau orang apa saya genut adir bun era acul kaya dekat apa rutin wajah kita ingat iya bang jangan cijai ada kau jangan runyin bang kena ring roll up kena ring roll bayi itu kada dong pensi mana cejo boleh nam yang terba wode da wode jangan kena wai wo dong jol nari wo urara kena reka nari reka eti kedeke rana ya kiban yira aci nuta rana koryal arata unuka lega ciga eruni ke gadia ke garun kar pa ke Iga jombi dia kenapa bukan ciga ayat dan kita kita enak waci jawab dia wawara apa wawara ate nak nunaga warga ate kate mana ate aku mah nu garang bayan ni dong kalau digegar tengkin nabot adalah lui bunyi dan nabot wanda ada lui muktabi pana ada lui hotan kau jenuh kajari ke gadia kau kau derat bawa cirijal ayah nak kau kau bayi mat aku beri itu apa rawan ayah nak mikro ke mana aku dah panon ayah belanja ayah kau sebetulnya dah bela diri lu nanti apa ada acino ya kan itu jangan tidak bu baca dan catat ayah ada calon tu wajib lagi bawa dia ayah tu mendongkal ayah tu bawa lewat tu kau apa hari lah karena kita jawab jadi jangan tu bayi baca kita antar ayah kita tahu ada aja penjam cepat cepat kalau ada orang kata dan dia uluman uluin ya kan penjam
alhamdulillah rabbil alamin اولا اني اقوم القادم في عاصمة الجنوب خرطوم هو جوا عفوا وأعضاء المجلس في ولاية علي النيل وعني سيد المعاصر مقاطع كوكا وحكومته وعني الأمم والمشايخ وجماهير مقاطع كوكا الحمد لله السلام نينا يوم عريسين السلام نانا يوم عريسين السلام البوليس رتاتي لحكومة جنوب السودان شوارع شارع كوكا من ملكال لشمال الولاية شمال النيل. إذا أصبحت الزناد ما عندنا هذا نلعب به وشبكة ده مسؤوليتنا كبوليس. لو في حاجة بعيد يتصلنا لو في حادث أو أماكن لو في حاجة قريب إشارة نلعبه. ما عندنا كلام زي ده اتصالات ما في ويا أمني بتاع طلاق. الحمد لله في مقاطعة كوكا وزينا بالشرطة في ديسان في شرطة في روم في شرطة في كوكا في شرطة. وهو حريص لوضع أمنية للمواطن والمواطن ينعم بحقه في كل أنحاء البلاد هو جنوب السودان. وشرطة هو موصول الأمن لكل المجتمع المدنية. فما السلسلة دي الحمد لله ونجيب على كده. أقوي المجد لله في العالي وعلى الأرض السلام وبناس الذين بهم المسرة. لما بين مقاطعة بعد عملية Honorable Mumador حافظ على مقاطعة كوكا وجلاء وقت هو أعطاك مجلس القومي وإذا كنت لبن جبا ده دوني من الذي يدع وجلاء أعطاك هنا كويبا ويكون ولاية أنو كتير أيا دang بتغلي yên chỉ tuân tại cho cái bình cái tổ cái nó vuông cái salam này bị vuông cái salam chỉ tay còn cái gian bên này lui chia tay nhân salam rồi uno ăn bên cái là tay quên cái salam cái nó chỉ bên cái giò đuôi làm như vậy không có lên salam không có gì ở đây rồi أنا بن يتوه سلام يدوري غيرك أنا هنا بيك كوبك زي اللي جاتا نادر عن كي بيج جام نادر عن كده أبي لوب لا أبي لوب
ماما كون لا أول مرة يمكن نجي أكوكا عشان نقابل الناس بتاع أكوكا. أنا وقفت قبل كده أمامكم لكن الكويس أنا جيت أنا شايل كوفة بتاع سلام كده؟ أوكي أنا جيت أنا شايل كوفة بتاع سلام ليكن وكنت قمنا من جبهة سيد رئيس الجمهورية سلفا كير ميادي وكان مشى بارغزال بنفسه وقبل ما يقوم قال لنا يا أبا أمشي وصلوا كلام سلام لدوائركم وقام بجامنا مشى أسأل لا في بارغزال بكلم كلام سلام كمان جينا نوريكم كلام سلام لأن الحرب ناس انتهوا منه دايرين نعمل عفو العام في بابنا اي زول عمل لك حاجه بطال انت تخليه في حاجه بقوله فلا هو فانت لازم انت تعرف الزول تعرف الزول فالعفو ده لما نكون موجود نحن بكون لنا استقرار للتنمية زي ما حصل أكوكا ده تعبان ما في موية وده مدن القديمة المفروض يكون في زلط لو ما ظلم لكن نحن نصبر ما نستعجل برضه، لأنه رئيس الجمهورية كثير ميادين ما نستانا لينا ناس على النيل، ما فيه عقابة، ما فيه باليت، ما فيه سنتنا فنايل جوا، حتى المناطق الثانية ما نسافر. هو بيجيكم أسأل الله في برغزال وبيجيكم هنا، كان ما جاء أسأل برضه وكده بيجيكم عشانه برضه يجي يشوفكم، لكن جينا قدام لنا جنود بتاعه عشان ننور السلام لكم انتم. عشان كده وصلنا لكم نوريكم كلام سلام، وده نقول للمرأة معلش انتوا جبتوا كثير رجال كانوا بعيدين منكم، خليتوا الولادة انتوا ما قاعد تلدوا، نسوان مشددين لأننا مشددين في المولادة الأخرى، باقين في شمال رجال قاعدين براهم الولادة خلوا. فعشان نربي عيال ديل اللي دخلوا في مدارس لازم نقبلوا السلام. السلام هو وحيد اللي نقبله ونقبل بعضنا، نرجع زي زمان لنا قاعدين سوا. هسه وقت جينا في جبهة جينا النسوان راجل واحد بس في وسطنا، ليه جينا كنسوان كتار؟ لأنه المرأة بهم أي قضية، مرة لو في ما فيه دخان بشيل موية بروش الدخان ده عشان ما الدخان ده ما يطلع. مرة كان في مشكلة بكون في بين الناس، المشكلة ده بجيس، عشان كده استعجلنا كنسوان وراجل واحد جابه وسطنا، قلنا لا نينا ما بنقعد، نمشي نغسل حالنا نوريه انه سلام جاء، والكلام اللي تقولوه نينا بنشيله نوديه للقيادة فوق. لازم اي حاجه ناقص عندكم توريه من جاتنا كده، ناقص زي ما سمينا هسه ما في ناس بقعد بدون مويه، والشارع ما في، ومستشفى ما موجود، ده حاجات ده كله المفروض يكون موجود. شبكه بتاع اتصالات ما في، حتى لو جاكم حاجه ما بسمعوكم جوام ولا بنقصوكم زي الناس برا من جنوب السودان. المفروض الشبكه ده يكون موجود، زي المستشفى يكون في مال الولاده، لا ناس الولاده النسوان مرات الولاده يكون صعبه، ممكن مره يموت قبل ما يلقى اي دكتور، وقبل ما يلقى دايه كويسه ممكن يولدوا في مال كويس، فبدون سلام جات كله ما بيجي. عشان كده نقبل السلام، نقبل السلام يا علي، عشان خاطر نشوف الصغار ديل ونعمل تنميه، والمرة يكون زي زمانه، كل اي زول بكون عنده مزرعه بتاعه، كل زول عنده بيته، واي زول يعني ما بكون محتاج لتاني. وانا عارف انتوا الناس تاكوكا ده ناس قويين، ناس الزراعه ما قاعدين تمشي تشيلوا حاجات ناس، انتوا معتمدين لانفسكم. كذلك ده النتيجه انه عشان انتوا برضه عرسوا النسوان قويين، فانا ما بمشي كثير، انا داير ان السجن اجتماعي زمان انتوا قاعدين مع شلوك، قاعدين مع دينكا سوا وشلوك ونوير، اخوانكم جايين شهر 5 ده بيجونا ناس جداد، ناس اللي كان عندهم مشكله معنا، ما في زول ذكر الكلام، نقفلنا باب نفتح سبت السلام، نقبلوا بنيه واحد عشان يالا صغار نقدر نربيهم، عشان نعملوا تنميه في الجنوب. فانا ما بتكلم كثير، ده وسيلتي لكم، وان شاء الله المره الثانيه بنجيكم بخير برضه، وشكرا.
شكرا ماما، شكرا ماما.